of the greatest Roman emperors. The political and military actions of these Roman emperors fundamentally influenced the course of European history, and eventually even the entire world. The Roman emperors were the rulers who took control of the Roman world with the collapse of the institutional and social ensemble on which the Republic rested. The legitimacy of an emperor's rule depended on his control of the army and recognition by the Senate. Normally, an emperor was proclaimed by his troops, invested with imperial titles by the Senate, or both. But the Roman people regarded emperors as the equivalent of kings, even though the first emperor Octavian Augustus absolutely refused to be seen as a monarch. The era of the Roman Republic ended with the death of Julius Caesar, and Augustus marked the beginning of the Roman Empire, which lasted from 27 BC until 476 our era, with the abdication of Romulus Augustus. Throughout this period, several emperors reigned, and their reigns were divided into several dynasties. Don't forget to subscribe. Let's get started. 7. Vespasian, 9–79. Vespasian's reign lasted from 69 to 79 AD, and he was the founder of the Flavian dynasty, which went on to rule the Roman Empire for 27 years. His reign began during one of the most turbulent times in Roman history, as the empire was just recovering from the whims of infamous emperors such as Nero and Caligula, but also a civil war that resulted in the reign of 4 emperors in a single year. As a competent general who had proven his skills on the battlefield, Vespasian was assigned the task of bringing balance to Rome. During his 10-year reign, he did just that, earning a reputation as one of the greatest Roman emperors. During the reign of Vespasian, much money was spent on public works, as well as on the restoration and beautification of Rome. He initiated the construction of the Temple of Peace, a series of public baths, and one of the most majestic structures in ancient Rome, the Colosseum. Unfortunately, by the time the Colosseum was completed, Vespasian was dead. After his death in AD 79, he was succeeded by his eldest son Titus, and thus became the first Roman emperor to be directly succeeded by his own natural son, thus laying the foundations of a new dynasty. 6. Hadrian, 76–138. Emperor from 117 to 138, Hadrian was originally named Publius Aelius Hadrianus and came from an ethnic Italian family that had moved several generations earlier to Hispania. Even though his predecessor Trajan did not officially designate him as heir, the former emperor's wife proclaimed the appointment just before his death. A noted admirer of Greece, he sought to restore Greek architecture to its former glory. He rebuilt the Pantheon and built the Temple of Venus. He also built the wall that bears his name and marked the northern limit of Roman Britain. Hadrian spent a considerable part of his reign with the army, wearing his armor and sometimes eating and sleeping in camp with the soldiers. Keeping a military force alert and ready for battle was his biggest challenge, so historians explain that he sometimes set off false alarms to test his army's readiness, courage and response time to a crisis. But despite his reputation as an effective military administrator, his reign was marked by a lack of major conflicts, apart from the Second Roman-Jewish War, which he managed without much trouble. 5. Claudius, 10–54. One of the first Roman emperors to be born outside Italy, his reign lasted from 41 to 54 AD. He was the son of Drusus and Antonia Minor, and because he was afflicted with lameness and a slight loss of hearing, he was rather unfairly marginalized by his family and excluded from public office until his consulship. But fortunately for him, these problems directly or indirectly saved him from the same fate as Tiberius and Caligula, as potential enemies never saw him as a serious threat. His reign was seen as unstable in the eyes of the nobility and the Senate, as they were completely opposed to his ascension to the throne, but he received the support of the military instead. Claudius was a positive mix of contradictory characteristics: hesitant, confused, determined, cruel, intuitive, wise, but also dominated by his wife and his staff of freed slaves. But despite all these aspects and his obvious lack of experience, Claudius proved to be a capable and effective administrator. Also an ambitious builder, he ordered the construction of several new roads, aqueducts and canals throughout the empire. During his reign, the conquest of Great Britain began. 4. Tiberius, 42 BC 37 AD. Emperor from 14 to 37 AD, Tiberius Claudius Nero was the son of Livia Drusilla, who later married Augustus in 39 BC, making him the stepson of Octavian Augustus. Later, he was adopted by Augustus as his heir and took the name of Tiberius Julius Caesar, a name that later emperors would take on. Tiberius was one of Rome's greatest generals, conquering Pannonia, Dalmatia, Raetia and, temporarily, parts of Germany, laying the foundations of the northern frontier. But he is remembered as a withdrawn and sober ruler who never wanted to be emperor and bear a huge responsibility. Despite his negative image created by Roman historians, Tiberius left the imperial treasury with almost 3 billion sesterces at his death. 3. Marcus Aurelius 121 to 180. He is considered to be the last of the 5 good emperors, and a Stoic philosopher, ruling the Roman Empire between 161 and 180 AD. During his reign, Rome defeated the Parthians in the east, and in Central Europe, he triumphed over an alliance led by the Sarmatians, and also managed the threat of Germanic tribes that was becoming a disturbing reality. A possible revolt in the east led by Avidius Cassius could have caused serious trouble if it had gained momentum, but Aurelius immediately suppressed it. A remarkable philosopher and writer, Marcus Aurelius' volume, Meditations, written in Greek during military campaigns between the 170s and 180s AD, is still revered as a literary monument of philosophy. The volume of Stoic philosophy explains how to find and keep calm in the midst of conflict by following nature as a source of guidance and inspiration. Marcus Aurelius gained a reputation as the philosopher king during his lifetime, and the title would remain after his death as he became known as the philosopher. 2. Trajan 53 to 117. He was declared by the Senate Optimus Princeps or best ruler, and ruled Rome from AD 98 until he breathed his last in AD 117. Trajan is one of Rome's most outstanding emperors, and under the empire has reached its peak. He is remembered as a successful soldier emperor who presided over the greatest military expansion in Roman history, leading the empire to its greatest territorial extent until his death, his conquests including Dacia. He was respected by the common people, the Senate and the military, having built his reputation by overseeing extensive public building programs and policies of social and economic welfare. As an emperor, Trajan's reputation endured over time, and he was one of the few rulers whose reputation survived for 19 centuries. In the 18th century, historian Edward Gibbon popularized the notion of the 5 good emperors, with Trajan second on this list. Each new emperor after him was honored by the Senate with the greeting Feliciter Augusto, Melior Traiano, which meant, be luckier than Augustus and better than Trajan. 1. Octavian Augustus 63 BC 14 AD. The founder of the Roman Empire, Augustus, who has the longest reign of 41 years, from 27 BC to 14 AD. Born Octavian, he was given the name Augustus by the Senate as an honor for his great political and military achievements. He went on to avenge Caesar's death with Mark Antony. He later defeated him as well as the Egyptian queen Cleopatra. Augustus' reign ushered in an era of relative peace known as the Pax Romana or Roman peace. There were several wars on the Roman frontiers in the name of expansion and a year-long civil war, but after Augustus' succession to the throne, the Roman world was free of any large-scale warfare for more than 2 centuries. Augustus ruled wisely and built roads, aqueducts and buildings. Augustus was not only the first, but he was certainly one of the best emperors Rome ever had.